Costco shares just crossed the $1,000 per share mark. And the executives on the conference call after the company reported their Q1 earnings addressed the possibility of a Costco stock split. They've also talked about the Trump tariffs that are potentially coming down the pike here when the president gets inaugurated just a couple of weeks from now. We'll also look at Costco's membership and their revenue and their profits as the company passed down some price hikes, and we'll see how that addressed the company's financial situation. We'll also look at Costco technically. This stock just seems like it continues to go up and up. And in fact, when you look at the entire history of the company dating back to the 1980s, well, shares of Costco have just basically gone up. So is there an area where you can buy Costco? Can you actually step in here and buy at the $1,000 level? Is there precedent to actually step in at these levels? We'll talk about that. And I've got a major announcement here on the channel that you're going to want to stick around, and we'll talk about that. What is going on, investors? Hopefully guys are doing well out there. It's time to swipe our membership card and get into Costco earnings. Look, over the past year, Costco is up 59%, and year to date, if my computer were to work, up 52% year to date. And that makes sense because we're towards the end of the year. Now, the company just announced their Q1 earnings, and they beat expectations. Revenue came in at $62.15 billion. That was 7.5% growth year over year. They beat expectations by about $150 million. Now, when we look out several quarters with this company, it's about what you'd expect. Kind of mid-single digit growth. You have kind of a ballooning period where you have $80-90 billion kind of in this August quarter, which is the fourth quarter for Costco. But all in all, you're looking kind of mid-60s, low $60 billion revenue run rate in a, quote, normal quarter. Now, the company did pass through some price hikes, but before we get to that, on the conference call, the company addressed the situation of potentially a stock split. That is because the stock price of Costco, as you can see here, has crossed the $1,000 mark. And for some investors, that might seem, quote, expensive. Now, as you know, tuning into this channel, the price of a stock means nothing as it relates to how expensive it is. You're really looking at valuation multiples. And with Costco trading at 54 times forward earnings, that can be relatively expensive for Costco. Certainly, if you start comparing this stock to other retailers out there, it's maybe wildly expensive, but I would encourage you not to do that. That is because Costco's business model, which we'll get into when we look at the financials, slightly different than a Target and a Walmart, and I think they deserve a premium valuation. Now, as it relates to the stock split, the CFO said yes. On the stock split, you're probably aware that Costco has done stock splits in the past, and it's something that we'll continue to evaluate and discuss with our board. But there isn't a plan at this time for a stock split. Then he goes on basically saying that employees and retail investors have the ability to buy fractional shares, and most do that. But he says we do also recognize that there's a benefit of the stock feeling more affordable for our retail investors and employees who are very important constituents to us. So we'll continue to evaluate that over time. I guess this is kind of a non-answer on this stock split, but this probably means a stock split will come. It just is not something that they have in the cards maybe over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, they would have announced that during this call, but it's something that maybe over the next 12 months or so wouldn't surprise me if they do that. Now, a more important topic are the Trump tariffs, as that obviously impacts Costco a lot. As you roll your cart through Costco, there's a lot of goods sitting around the edges of the warehouse that are made in China. So the CFO addressed this also on the conference call, and he says he's going to quote his predecessor, Richard. He'd say, when it rains on everybody. And that's a great quote. Now, he says something very important here, but we'll dig into it rains on everybody. And with Costco saying that is tariffs are going to impact everybody. It's going to impact Target. It's going to impact Walmart. It'll impact Amazon, maybe even more than some of these other companies. And with Costco being viewed as a low profit, kind of a low cost retailer, well, consumers in a higher tariff, higher merchandise cost environment might actually go to Costco even more, knowing that they're probably going to save some money there. Now, here's something really interesting that both ties into Costco, but other investments that you might have. This is really interesting. He says, we have a plan over time that we've done this in the past, and typically well, look where we can pull forward inventory buying. So what he's saying is they're going to buy inventory now ahead of any type of tariffs. It might be spring, summer, even next year type of inventory. They'll do it now. Or instead of having maybe 3 months of supply of toilet paper or whatever it is, maybe they're going to have 6 months of supply, pull that buying forward. He goes on to talk about shipping and strikes at the ports and those types of things. So this is really interesting. If you're investing in other companies and all of a sudden they show a spike of orders or they have a really good quarter and the stock reacts positively and the CFO and the CEO don't get on there and are honest, what you could be seeing is a pull forward of buying that then won't materialize in subsequent quarter. We've seen this in the past. We saw it in the semiconductor industry with laptops and tablets and those types of things had huge spike in demand. There was a huge pull forward of purchases. Those companies scaled up their business models and then they saw that demand basically get wiped off the map, and most of those stocks got wiped off the map, including Nvidia. So this is something to really look as we move into next year. This is the kind of the risk, but also kind of the excitement of the Trump administration is these type of investing opportunities. If you have your eyes and ears to the grindstone and you're really connecting all the dots, there's probably going to be a lot of great opportunities. Now, speaking of great opportunities, we'll get to kind of the financials here with Costco in a minute, but I've got Blue Chip Stock Investor. This is going to be launching in January when we have a new earnings cycle of all these blue chip companies. They're all going to be reporting their earnings in January, February, and March, and really all of next year. And I'm launching a new service where we'll be covering basically 100 different companies, all the blue chip companies, including Costco. I'll be making an announcement here on YouTube when we get a little closer to launch, but you want to subscribe to the newsletter. That is down below in the description. Make sure you subscribe. I'll be giving exclusive discounts to those of you that have supported me in the past. Now, let's get to Costco's Q1 revenue. We talked about how a revenue came in at about $62 billion. That includes about $61 billion is actual merchandise. This is the stuff you actually buy at Costco. And then you have the all-important membership fees at about $1.2 billion. It grew from about 1.1 from the period before. Now, they've passed through more recent price hikes. And so as you renew your Costco membership, eventually once we roll through about 12 months, everybody will be on that higher membership fee. And so that is exciting as you move into the rest of the year. Total revenue, like we said, came in at $62 billion. Now, as you know, this company runs at razor thin margin. We're talking single digit margins. And then on things like the hot dog and that $4.99 chicken in the back of the store, they ain't making no money on that. So there's some items inside of Costco that are loss leaders. And their merchandise costs off of $61 billion in revenue came in at about $54 billion. Now, they have all the employees and all the staff that make all that go. That was about $5.8 billion. And so that leaves about $2.2 billion worth of operating income. Last year, it was closer to about $2 billion. So that's the important of those price hikes on those membership fees. A lot of that flows down to operating income. And then when you flow down to net income, you get about $1.8 billion. Now, the great thing about Costco is this company really rewards shareholders to the fact that, yes, they're sitting on about $11 billion worth of cash. But as you know, every couple of years, they do a special dividend. Now, I think they did one. It was last year, or it's been more recently they've done a special dividend. So I wouldn't expect one anytime soon, but maybe next year, certainly the year after, you tend to get one of these special dividends where they unload the cash. Now, you get a regular dividend with this company and they continue to raise it. In fact, you get $4.64. Now, with shares at close to $1,000, it's not a big yield, but you have to factor in that you get that special dividend as well every couple of years with this company. It's balanced off with not a lot, okay? They don't have a lot of long-term debt over here. In fact, total liabilities coming in at about $48 billion, but based on the fact that they have plenty of cash, merchandise inventories as well, what I'm seeing is we do have a little bit of pull forward, at least based on where we were in September, where we had about $18.7 billion in inventory. Now we're up to 21. It'll be really interesting to see the upcoming quarter. But this company is, for a retailer, These are really, really, really clean financials. And then when you come down to cash flows, it looks a little different. Last year, you had about $4.7 billion of operating cash flow. It was benefited by this change of working capital. You didn't get that this year. So you had about $3.2 billion of operating cash flow. I don't think these two things are really comparable. It's really like, okay, you generated $3.3 billion of operating cash flow. What did you spend it on over at Costco? Well, they continue to build out stores. I think on the conference call, they talked about maybe 20 or 30 locations, so one every other week or so opening up. They primarily talked about here in the United States, Canada, Mexico, and I think the three countries, while there's some tough talk from Trump, I think the three countries will work together, and it probably won't impact Costco's build-out plans in those countries. So the company spends about $1.3 billion of this $3.3 on build-out. That gives them obviously plenty of money to pay down maybe a little bit of debt. They're paying some cash dividends and they're buying back the stock to a certain degree. But what this company does is they stack cash. They stacked $1 billion almost on the number in terms of overall cash. You saw that when we got to the balance sheet. Eventually, after several quarters of stacking $1 billion, maybe even slightly more than that, eventually they unload this cash in the form of a special dividend. Now, get over here to the technicals. And for many of you, yeah, it's up at the top of the range. If you already own shares like I do, I bought this one. I think I looked the other day. I think I bought this one at one time south of 400 and then again right around 400. So, you're sitting on pretty big gains on here. If it's a retirement account, we actually talked about this in the newsletter. If you're sitting in a retirement account, keep your Costco shares. There's nothing fundamentally here, even with the tariffs and stuff like that. There's nothing to be worried about. And I do believe the CFO where, hey, if it starts to rain on retail with tariffs, it might impact Costco's stock price, but it's probably going to impact the rest of the sector. And this company has a strong base with its customers, and those memberships are just going to renew and they'll continue to churn out profits. But the company can stay at the elevated valuation, which would be up here towards this red line for a long period of time. You notice back in September of 1997, I was a young man back in 1997, and we hovered at the top of the range all the way into 2008. So I basically went through high school and went through college and even a little bit after, and the stock hovered at that range. So it is possible. Is it likely? Is it ideal to buy at these ranges? Not necessarily. So I wouldn't blame an investor to be patient. Pullbacks in Costco can be bought. First area where I would actually probably step in and add to a position, probably down just south of 900. Obviously further back will be here, probably on YouTube, but certainly on Blue Chip Stock Investor, pounding the table. This will be a screaming buying opportunity. You get down to the bottom of basically a 40-year price channel. And if you don't buy there, then you need to hire a money manager to money manage your money for you, because clearly you don't know how to buy the dip. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. We'll be back again. This is Friday. So we'll be back again later today with the Fang Saga Recap Show. I'll see you all then. Good luck with your investments.